My wife Chloe brought a homeless man into our home claiming he was a charity case. But tonight, I followed them to the most exclusive restaurant in Miami. That man in the $3,000 suit, he isn't a beggar. He's the ex-husband Chloe told me died in a boating accident 10 years ago. And they aren't just having dinner. They're celebrating the fact that I'm their next target. The first thing I noticed was the watch. Not the face, the reflection. Blue light from the restaurant aquarium slid across the sapphire crystal as the man lifted his windglass. The same watch I'd seen 10 years earlier in a magazine profile about vanished tech investors off the Florida coast. Except the article said he was dead. I sat frozen in the back corner of the scale while cold air from the vent rattled the candle on my table. Somewhere behind me, silverware clinked against porcelain. Expensive perfume drifted through the room every time the servers passed. My wife leaned toward him like they shared a private joke. The homeless man she brought into our house 3 days earlier had dirt under his fingernails when I met him. His beard was matted gray. His shoes were splitting at the sides. Now he wore a charcoal Brioni suit and a watch worth more than my first condo project. I remember opening my phone under the table. My fingers felt numb against the screen. Leo Grayson missing at sea. The article loaded instantly. A grainy photo appeared beside the headline. Younger face. Clean-shaven. Same eyes. Declared legally dead in 2014. Estimated estate value. $43 million. I looked back toward the table. My wife was smiling at a dead man. And then he looked directly at me. Not surprised. Not nervous. Amused. That was the moment I understood something inside my marriage had been staged long before I ever noticed it. I just didn't understand which part yet. We lived in Coral Gables for 5 years. The house sat behind old banyan trees on a quiet street where every driveway held either a Porsche or a Range Rover, white stucco walls, black steel windows, imported Italian stone around the pool. I built luxury properties across South Florida, condo conversions, waterfront restorations, short-term investment flips for foreign clients. On paper, my life looked airtight. My wife Vanessa handled charity work, galas, fundraisers, shelter outreach programs, the kind of philanthropy wealthy neighborhoods used to soften themselves. 3 nights before the restaurant, she came home with Leo. Rainwater dripped from his jacket onto the marble entryway. The smell hit first. Wet fabric, cigarettes, salt water. The security lights outside flickered through the glass doors behind them. Vanessa looked almost emotional. She told me she'd found him nearby Skane Boulevard after volunteering downtown. Said he needed temporary help. Said nobody else would take him in. Something about the way she said it bothered me immediately. Not compassion. Urgency. Like she'd already made a decision before asking. Leo barely spoke that first night. He kept his eyes low and rubbed his thumb against the edge of the ceramic mug while the air conditioning hummed through the kitchen vents. I remember noticing his hands. Too clean beneath the dirt. No tremor, no damage, no signs of hard street living. When he thanked me for the guest house, his voice sounded educated. Controlled. Vanessa squeezed my arm under the counter afterward. She said I was being judgmental. Maybe I was. Still, around 2 in the morning, I woke up and realized Vanessa wasn't in bed. The hallway upstairs felt cold against my bare feet. I could hear the pool filter running outside through the screened patio. Then I heard whispering from the guest house. I crossed the backyard slowly. The lights were off inside except for the glow above the kitchenette sink. Vanessa stood near the window. Leo sat at the table. Between them was a stack of documents. I couldn't hear everything over the rain tapping the glass roof, but I caught one sentence clearly. Just a few more days. Then, once the signature's clear, we're finished here. My stomach tightened. A second later, Vanessa saw me through the window reflection. She stepped outside immediately, carrying folded blankets she definitely hadn't been holding before. Her explanation came too fast. Extra bedding. Couldn't sleep. Trying to help him settle in. But when she brushed past me, her hands were shaking. And Leo never once looked embarrassed. Only irritated that I'd interrupted something. The next morning smelled like burned espresso. Vanessa stayed unusually quiet while scrolling through her phone at the kitchen island. Every few minutes the screen lit her face blue. I noticed she angled it away from me. At noon, she told me she had a meeting with a tax attorney in Brickell. An hour later, I followed her. Miami traffic crawled beneath white heat and construction dust. Sweet gathered under my collar while I stayed 3 cars behind her black Mercedes. She never went near Brickell. Instead, she drove into the design district. Luxury storefronts reflected sunlight like mirrors. Bentleys lined the curb beside tourists carrying shopping bags bigger than suitcases. Vanessa parked near a private valet entrance. I stayed across the street inside my truck with the engine off. Then I saw Leo. He walked out of my guest house 20 minutes later. Not homeless anymore. A black Escalade picked him up near our neighborhood entrance. By the time it reached the district, he had changed clothes in the back seat. Dark suit, leather shoes, hair combed back. Watching it happen through tinted glass made my chest feel hollow. I followed them on foot through the heat. The smell of sunscreen and traffic exhaust hung in the air while palm leaves scraped softly overhead. They entered Upscale together. Inside, the lighting was dim enough to hide faces but bright enough to catch jewelry. Vanessa touched his wrist when they sat down. Not romantic. Familiar. Like partners. I took a table near the rear hallway. For 20 minutes, I watched them review documents. Folders. Property records. Bank statements. Then Leo slid something across the table. A photograph. Vanessa stared at it for a long time before slipping it into her purse. That image bothered me more than anything else. Not because I saw what it was. Because she looked frightened after seeing it. That was new. Back home, I searched everything. Leo's old company. Death records. Insurance litigation. Archived marina reports. The deeper I went, the stranger it became. His yacht vanished during a storm near the Bahamas. No body recovered. 2 months later, Vanessa, who apparently knew him before she met me, received a $2 million insurance settlement connected to his estate. My hands stopped moving on the keyboard. I checked dates again. Vanessa met me less than a year after Leo disappeared. That night, I opened the safe in my office. Our deed wasn't there. Only mortgage documents. I searched every drawer while the grandfather clock downstairs ticked loud enough to feel aggressive. Finally, I found a scanned copy on my laptop. Owner. Vanessa Carter. Only Vanessa. Not me. Even though every mortgage payment for 5 years came from my accounts. I sat there until sunrise listening to the refrigerator hum downstairs while panic slowly turned into clarity. I thought I understood the scam. I was wrong. The confrontation happened the following night. I didn't plan it carefully. Anger made planning unnecessary. The restaurant smelled like citrus cleaner and grilled sea bass when I walked in. My pulse was loud enough to drown out the piano music. Vanessa saw me first. The window glass slipped from her hand and shattered across the white tablecloth. People turned. Leo stayed calm, almost relaxed. I sat down across from them without taking off my jacket. I asked him how the Atlantic felt 10 years ago. He smiled immediately. Not denial. Recognition. Then everything came out faster than I expected. The disappearance had been intentional. Financial investigations were closing in on Leo's investment group back then. Offshore laundering. Fraud exposure. Debt hidden through shell companies. Vanessa helped him vanish. The insurance payout funded their survival. The house was purchased entirely through those funds under Vanessa's name. Then I entered the picture. A successful developer with stable income and excellent credit. Perfect for maintaining expensive assets without attracting scrutiny. Leo explained it almost casually while condensation slid down his water glass. They needed someone legitimate. Someone patient enough to build equity. Someone emotionally invested enough not to question paperwork. Me. I remember staring at Vanessa's wedding ring while restaurant lights reflected off the diamond. 5 years? Birthdays, vacations, holidays with her family. Every memory suddenly felt rented. Leo thanked me for the mortgage payments. Actually thanked me. That was the moment humiliation replaced anger. Because the story finally made sense. Or at least it seemed to. I stood up ready to leave. Then Vanessa grabbed my wrist. Hard. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely terrified. Not exposed. Terrified. She kept glancing toward the restaurant entrance. That's when I noticed two men outside watching the windows. Dark suits. Parked sedan, idling at the curb. Leo saw them too. And suddenly the confidence disappeared from his face. The meaning of the entire dinner shifted again. Because rich people hiding from fraud, investigators don't look scared of random men in parked cars. People running from something worse do. We left separately. Leo disappeared through the kitchen exit. Vanessa got into my truck before I could stop her. Rain hammered the windshield while traffic lights blood red across the wet pavement. She finally told me the part she'd hidden. Leo never disappeared because of financial crimes. The fraud story was only what newspapers received. His real business involved moving money for private clients who preferred not to exist publicly. Politicians, foreign intermediaries, organized networks operating through Miami real estate. 10 years earlier, money vanished. A lot of it. Enough to get people killed. Leo staged his death because someone inside the operation blamed him for the missing accounts. Vanessa helped him escape because she'd been involved with him before me. But according to her, the money was truly gone. That was why Leo stayed hidden for a decade. That was why he suddenly resurfaced now. Someone had found something. She opened her purse and handed me the photograph from the restaurant. I nearly drove into the median. The image showed my office. Not recently. Years ago. Construction dust everywhere. Unfinished drywall. Temporary lighting. And in the corner behind my desk sat a black duffel bag. I recognized it instantly. It had belonged to my father. The same father who died 3 months before I met Vanessa. My throat went dry. Vanessa told me Leo believed my father stole the missing money before his disappearance. At first I laughed because it sounded insane. My father ran small commercial renovations in Tampa. He drank cheap bourbon and complained about taxes. Nothing about him suggested international laundering networks. Then Vanessa showed me another photo. My father standing beside Leo at a marina in 2013. Arm around his shoulder. Both smiling. I could hear only windshield wipers after that. Memory started rearranging itself. The sudden cash my father had before he died. The storage unit nobody could access afterward. The nights he disappeared without explanation during my 20s. I realized something colder then. Vanessa hadn't married me just to use my income. She married me because she believed eventually I would lead them to whatever my father took. And over time, she actually fell in love with me. That was the problem. Because Leo never stopped looking. The guest house wasn't charity. It was pressure. He believed she'd gone soft. He came back to force an ending. When we pulled into the driveway, the guest house door stood open. Lights on. Furniture overturned. Someone had already been there. The safe in my office was open. Not broken. Opened. Inside sat one item. A VHS tape. Dust coated the plastic edges like it had been hidden for decades. My hands shook carrying it downstairs. The old player in the media room barely worked. Static rolled across the screen before the image stabilized. Date stamp, August 2013. My father appeared first. Older, sweating, nervous. Then Leo entered frame. Alive, younger, angry. The audio crackled beneath the hum of an industrial fan somewhere nearby. I watched the two men argue over missing money, offshore accounts, transfers, fake debts. Then my father said something that hollowed out my entire body. He told Leo the money was never stolen. It had been transferred to a beneficiary account. My account, created under my name years earlier. I paused the tape. Couldn't breathe for a second. I rewound it twice to make sure I heard correctly. My father had hidden the funds through me without my knowledge. Not millions. Hundreds of millions. Enough to disappear governments. enough to keep people hunting for over a decade. Then came the second twist, the final one. At the very end of the tape, after Leo left frame, my father looked directly into the camera and spoke to me. Not future me. Present me. Because he knew eventually I would watch it. He explained everything calmly while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The accounts could only be unlocked through a biometric sequence tied to me. A contingency. Protection against everyone else involved. Then he said the sentence that redefined my entire marriage. Vanessa wasn't sent to manipulate me after his death. My father arranged for her to meet me before he died. She had been watching me from the beginning. Not for Leo. For him. To make sure nobody reached the money before I was ready. I sat there in darkness while rain hit the windows outside. Every year of my marriage rearranged itself in my head. The affection. The timing. The protection disguised as deception. Then the front gate alarm sounded. Three cars entering the property. Vanessa looked at me once from across the room. Not frightened anymore. Resigned. Because both of us finally understood the same thing. Leo had never been the architect. My father was. And somehow, without realizing it, I'd inherited a war that started long before I met my wife. I remember reaching for the hidden account documents while headlights swept across the walls outside. That was the moment I understood. I was never the mark. I was the contingency.